So we're going to press Control 0. That's going to make our stage bigger. Now what we're going to do is we're going to choose the text tool, and we're going to choose these settings that I've got here already. Cooper Black 120 point, and you can just put whatever you want in here. Put wired, click here, and then we're going to want to put this. So we're going to want to put this right there, and that's pretty cool. And then we can do a new layer, and then we can choose the brush tool. Go to our brush settings. 15 points on this one is fine. And then we'll just draw a few little lines going down. And then we can click on this one and press Control E. So it'll combine the two. Then you can go to this one and you can click on Layer from Background. You see, it's going to actually change it. Look. See, it's changed now. And then we can do blending options, and we can go to our gradient overlay, and that is not actually the one I want to use. So let's look at our gradient. I wanted to go for something orange. Yeah, we'll go for that. I'm not going to go overboard with this section. I know some people do. And that is good. Okay, and again, we can press V, and then we can press Control and 0, and that's going to resize it to fit the window better. So now what we want to do is something which, this might not work. If you're following along, this might not work for you. So I would suggest what you want to go to is you go in here, you go to Preferences, go to Technology Previews. Make sure you have this thing here, because I'm about to do 3D, and you can see what it says in the description there. You want to make sure this is selected. As long as it is, that's fine. So then we can go to this one, and you see at the bottom of this menu, we've got some interesting options. And this is called New 3D Extrusion from Selected Layer. So let's see what happens when we click that. And you can press yes. And you can see a bunch of stuff happened, right? We've got the timeline has appeared, and we've got our grid, we've got a bunch of different stuff. So what you then can do is, you can see this is the, you can select the various different parts. So say we wanted to change this to a blue color. And you can actually choose this one actually, now I think about it. Now go back to this one. We'll do postcard. And then we can combine this one and that one. Okay, 3D and render 3D layer. All right, once it's finished rendering, you want to go to rasterize 3D. Welcome to Photoshop 2022. This version of Photoshop comes with a really cool new neural filter. It's so cool, in fact, that we actually need to do some stuff in the settings. So if you've got 8 gigs of RAM like me, you may want to go in here, Control K. And what I would suggest you do is, for one thing, in the scratch disks, I use an external SSD, which is this one here, the E drive. And here what I do is, you can see I've got 34128. If you click on default photos, this is probably what yours is at. So I would suggest leaving it at 128, because it just does so much work that this can actually overload the RAM. And I've got it within about 72% here on the RAM usage. So with that in mind, we're going to go to Filters, Neural Filters. And the filter we're using here is the Landscape Mixer filter. So if we go here, you'll see just what it does. I mean, it is unbelievable, this thing. So it's super, super powerful. You can choose between presets. You can choose all these different presets. And you'll see what happens. So for instance, let's just do a winter scene. We're going to change this into a winter scene. And then when that's finished, we can press OK. And that has completely changed the picture. Right? So you can see, if you actually zoom in here, literally got snow on the trees there. So let's make it a desert scene now. Okay, let's see what this one looks like. Whoa. There's a crazy amount of like effects to stuff. Even like got the haze there around the sun. And just to compare it to what it looks like before, right? It's unbelievable the difference. All right. So what else have we got that we could try? We could try one of these presets. What about some of this stuff at the bottom, maybe? So you can also just do stuff with the subjects as well. I might try doing stuff with the subjects in a minute. One thing also to point out is that you want to press convert for smart filters before you do any of this. We could do like a mix of a bunch of different stuff, couldn't we? We're going to make it spring and summer. This was suggested not to try to do this. I imagine by the that actually went much faster, that one actually. So maybe doing the presets is actually doing a bunch of different stuff. So maybe doing these ones at the bottom is actually a better way to go around. Let's see what happened there. More of a subtle change. More of a subtle change, that one. Let's just look. Yeah, interesting. I actually kind of like that. It's not as intense. You can definitely see. I guess the topiary is better. Welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this I want to look at new document and how we might optimize that particular feature to make it better and more seamless. So go to File and go to New, and you can see this menu comes up. Now the issue with this menu is it's kind of like a little bit pointless. So we may as well revert back to the old one. So let's go to Edit, and if we go back to Preferences, in general, there is actually the ability to do so. So it says, so you can see, use legacy new document interface. So let's try that instead. So we do that, and then we do new. You see instead we get this, which is much better, right? So you can do different things. You can choose, you can do, I want something for film and video. There's 1080p. So that's going to be perfect, right? If you're going to be working with multimedia. So that way you don't have to go into that big box with with a lot of kind of pointless things in there. So another thing you can do, say we zoom in. So the way I tend to zoom in, you can press the magnifying glass. I like to press Control and plus and minus, and then use the hand here to move around. Say we're at a good spot, and we wanted to just look at the whole picture. What we can do is hold H and then press the button, hold down the mouse button. You see, it will take you to this, seeing the full screen. And it will do that regardless of like how zoomed in you are, right? So we could zoom in even further. Hold down H, press the mouse button, the left mouse button, and it lets you see that external view. It's just, and then when you let go of the mouse, it goes back. Now I'd like to show something with new document. If we go to image and we go mode, we're going to change this. Normally it's RGB color. We're going to change it to something else. Let's do that. So now we've turned it to CMYK color. Okay, so now we press Control A, we'll select all, and Control C to copy. Now we're going to do new document type clipboard, and you'll see it's put in all the things into the CMYK color. So if I press OK, you can see now we have the same document. You can see our mode here, CMYK color. So that's a cool way to start a new document in a kind of seamless way. And yeah, so that's all for now. So thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to this video looking at how to copy layers into new Photoshop documents. So let's say we want to copy this layer here. We've got the Zoas site here, and we want to copy it into a new document. Well, pretty straightforward. All we can do is we can create a new document, and there it is, right? So all we have to do is we drag the image up to here until we get into the tab. Then from this position, we drag it down until we get the plus, and you can see it's now in the new tab. We can also move between tabs by pressing Control and then the backwards apostrophe next to the 1. So you see if I press Control, I can go between the two documents there. If we go down to the bottom here, you can see that we've got 25%. Now if we wanted to change that, if we press Control, you'll see that we get a two-headed arrow, which means that we can drag it left to right, and then we'll be able to zoom it in and out. If we do Control Alt, you'll see we'll be able to go in very fine increments, and Control Shift does much larger increments. If we click on this, if we click here on the status bar, you can see we can see the width and the height, channels and resolution. If we press Control, it will tell us the tile width and the image. And generally, if you look at it, you can see there's a few kind of important things to look at here. The ones that I've chosen here, I've actually put them on the info panel. You can do that by going to the panel options, and you can choose, this is the same menu as this button here. Probably the most useful one, I would guess, is probably the current tool. So you can see, this is a good way just to see what every tool is very, very quickly. So we can also do window arrange, new window, and we'll pull that out. And this creates a duplicate window, so I could like do brightness, and you see it lets you use both windows at exactly the same time. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today, so thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome to this video looking at how to create a guide layout from a shape. So you can see I've got a shape here on layer 4, and we may want to create a guide layout from that. So the way we do that is we go to View, and we're going to go to Guides, and we've got New Guides from Shape. You can see it's going to create it on the edges there. Now guides actually do quite a lot of stuff. For instance, if I did a new document here and I did it with film and video, you can see it creates a guide there. But another thing that you can do, say I change the image size, we do half the width for example, you can see the guides are still in the right position. So it's a relative guide and it will adjust accordingly to the size of the canvas. So you could clear all the guides, you can lock the guides, because at the moment the guides can actually be moved. And talking about moving the guides, if I press Shift, you'll see I can go, if you look at the ruler, you'll see I'm going on the points of the ruler there. Another thing you can do is if I press, you can see it snaps as well to the point there. Another thing you can do is if I press Alt, let go, it's going to then change it to a vertical guide. When you're actually drawing the guides out, if you press Alt while you're doing it, that's a good way to actually do it sort of on the fly, pressing Alt. Hello, and welcome to a look at the Tools panel. So obviously here on the left-hand side, you can see we've got the Tools panel. I'm also going to look at Tool Presets here, so I've put the Tool Presets panel down here. So with the tools, you can obviously access them with shortcuts. So for example, if I press H, I'm going to get the hand. If I press J, the patch tool, if I shift and press J, I go from the Content Aware, Red Eye tool, Spot Healing Brush. So the J kind of tools are all in a sort of healing brush category, and we can verify that by going to Edit Toolbar. And if we take a look at J, you'll see these are all the ones that we just went through. So that is a way to browse through all the different categories. Now, in this customized toolbar thing, you can do a bunch of different things. When we hover over an item, we're going to see a box appear around it. If we go into the left 15 pixels, the box will be the whole item, and that will allow us to move it around. So for instance, if I wanted to move this shape below this. I could, for instance, do it the other way around. I could move this one up, go up a bit, put that there, and then the shape is there. Or if I wanted to get the paint bucket in the 5th slot. And if you don't want stuff, all you have to do is you just drag it from here and you drag it over to the right in extra tools, and that gets rid of it for you. And so the paint bucket tool, I want that to be in the 5th slot, so that's going to be after the lasso. So I'll look for the lasso up here. There it is. And there's the paint bucket. So you can see I've got like move, I've got shape, paint bucket, crop, all sort of things I might want to use. And then once you're done with that, you can do save preset. And we can go for practical 3, for example. I've just been trying out some stuff here, so there we go. Okay, so that's cool. And then you have your tool. Now, there is also this thing called the tool presets here, which is a panel separately. And you'll notice that because I've got the healing brush selected, it says healing brush 21 pixels. If I click on this button here, these are all the default presets that come with Photoshop. So for instance, if I wanted to crop, all I would have to do is click on one of these, and you see it automatically changes the tool, and it will crop to various different specifications. And you can, of course, add presets yourself. So this is going to be kind of like a... now, for instance, and obviously when you select a tool, it appears here in the options menu, all the settings for that tool. If you want to reset the tool, all you have to do is right click on the tool here and reset the tool, and it will reset it to the default settings. Okay, so the last thing, say we have the hand selected with H. Say I wanted to move it and then revert back to the hand tool. I'd click the move tool, so I'd hold down V this time. I'd move it to my desired location here. And when I let go, it immediately reverts back to the hand tool. So that is a way if you just want to select something and you just want to do one small thing on it, but then revert back to the previous tool. And actually one final thing is just this interesting thing. If you press tab, you'll get like the whole screen. If you press shift tab, it will give you still have access to the toolbar, you just won't have anything on the right hand side. This is probably something that happens to a lot of people. They sort of see, well, why is my screen like this? And it's because they press tab. But anyway, that will do for now, so thanks for watching. Welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this one, we're going to look at how to create a shaded 3-dimensional ball. So we're going to start by doing a new layer, and we're going to choose the elliptical marquee tool, and we're going to hold down shift, and we're going to draw our ball out. So there we go. We've got this selection now for the ball. And to fill it, we're going to go here into the color picker, and we're going to set our foreground color as a mid-gray tone. So we can just basically go right on the left-hand edge here, choose our mid-gray there. Press OK. We're going to press Alt and Backspace, and what that will do is it will turn the fill to that color as well. Now we're going to switch to the Burn tool, which is this tool here. And we're going to look at the radius. We'll say, well, that radius, that's probably about a couple hundred. So we'll do about half the radius. And we'll make sure we've got a soft brush here. You can also, if you look here, you can see brush names. So if we search for a soft brush here, you can see, okay, there's a soft round brush. So we'll maybe do a little bit more than that, and we can click there or escape to get out of that. And what we're going to do is we want to essentially make it dark, and then a little bit around the dark around this sort of area. I want to go into like a circular like pattern. A little bit of darkness around the edge here as well. But mainly it's going to be this kind of area. So once we get something there, you can see that we can then add additional layers of darkness here at the base here, and just try and a little bit more, and just try to, and just make it dark like that. Okay, so now what we want to do is add a specular highlight. So we can go to the dodge tool, and what you can do here is we're just going to do like a little circle around here as the dodge. And then what I'll do is I'll just up the exposure a little bit for the center bit to create like a little bit of a blend there. Just put it a little bit, maybe a few little, it depends if you tap right how you get that. And then what we can do is then we can add another layer, and we can put the little shadow in as well. So we do the layer here, and behind. And what we can do is, if we do our elliptical marquee again, we can draw it out here. We can say, well, that's not quite in the right place. Hold down the space bar, and that will actually let you position it in the right place. So you want it somewhere like about here, right? Okay, so that will do. And then we can go to select, modify, and do the feathering here. 20 pixels sounds fine. And then what you can do is we can set the foreground color to black, right in the bottom left corner. Alt backspace, get that in there as well. And we'll lower the opacity. And then we'll do a layer mask, which is found in the layer thing, layer mask, reveal all. And there you can see it is. And we're going to go to our gradient tool now. And again, we can select here, if you look in here, we want the small list. If you just have the thumbnail, you won't actually see what it's called. And we're going to jump in here into the basics, and we're going to go foreground to transparent. And we'll do that one. And then we can just simply draw a little bit here. And that's going to just make it a little bit lighter. And you can just get out of that. So yeah, so that's a pretty quick way of doing the specular, and then if you could actually put in a little bit of dodge around the edge of this thing as well. Maybe just a little bit. Maybe just maybe dodge it up a little bit here. But yeah, that'll basically do for this video. So thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to this video looking at layer masks. So to do a layer mask, what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to put this lady here, and we're going to put it in the middle here. So how are we going to do that? Well, what we're essentially going to do is we're just going to hold down Shift, using the Move tool, put it right there. All right, so it doesn't matter the exact position for now. Can always move it in a moment, but by pressing Shift, I've centered it properly in the window there. So to do the masks is we're going to go to Select, I want to go to Subject. And for a picture like this, there will be different videos I do where I do things that are perhaps more complicated, but you can see with a picture like this, it's kind of perfectly selected. Maybe there's a little bit here that isn't quite perfect. But what we can then do is just click this button here, which is Add Layer Mask. And that's going to do that. And then we can also, if we wanted to say we're not actually completely happy with the position, say we put the position somewhere like here. Now, when you actually want to blend it, what you have to do is you select the brush tool, and I've just gone for soft round brush. And you can see here the foreground color is black. What that means essentially, if you look at the mask, what it actually looks at, I'm just painting in black on the mask. So that is actually going to just delete stuff, right? So you can see if I just paint on it, it deletes it. So I could, do something like that if we wanted to get various things. Now, if I wanted to do the opposite of that, all I'd have to do is just select this and just put it in the top corner. And now it'll draw stuff on, right? So yeah, so that's essentially all I really wanted to talk about for this particular video. I will do some more difficult examples and various other Photoshop videos coming soon. So until next time, thanks for watching. Hello, welcome back to another Photoshop video. So I'm going to start this video by looking at this bricks layer here we've got. And what I want to do is, firstly, I want to look at the layers panel. You see this box is very small. We go here and we go to the panel options button here. We can increase the size, and that just makes it a little bit easier to see. Now with backgrounds, you tend to want to actually convert them to regular layers. So you just double click and press OK. And you can also double click there and we can make bricks. Now if you wanted to create a layer underneath, which we do in this case, see if we do this, it's going to create a layer above. So if we hold down Control and then press this button, it creates a layer below. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide this layer. We're going to choose the gradient tool. And we're going to go for basics. We're going to go black to white. We're going to make sure that our reverse the gradient colors is on. We're going to go for a radial gradient. And then we're just going to simply drag from here to here. That creates that. And we're going to turn the bricks layer back on. Now, and then we're going to go back to the bricks layer here. And just do a little something there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we want to have a background on the left and then some images, borders, and all sorts of things there. So we're going to select our image. All right, so I've got this image I want to use here. So let's use this as the main image in the picture. And what I'd like to do is just take a look at the image size. And I want essentially the height to be 1080. So it will, completely line up there. All right, that's good. And we can press Control 0, make it bigger. Just maybe one Control minus as well to get that size. So what we're going to do is I'll take our marquee tool and we're just going to maybe not make it, just get rid of a little bit of the right hand side. So width of about 980, that's fine. And we can go to image, we can go to crop, we can do control, and we can do paste. We'll put it in, back to the move tool, and we put that in there. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to get a couple more images as well. So we have a cornflower and a buttercup, which fortunately are right next to each other. And I want these to be about 350 each. So I'm just going to do a rough crop. I want it to be fairly square in nature. So something like that maybe will be okay. And we can just do a crop. And then with this, again, fairly square in nature. And with a crop. And then we want both of these to be about 350. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to go 350, tab, 350, Control 0. And then again, we're going to do image size, 350, 350, Control 0. And then the other way, of course, to move the files along is just go to the Move tool and just put it in there. And we want the buttercup in there as well. So put that in. All right, so you can see we've got a couple of layers. Let's make sure we've got our labeling done. So hills. All right, so we've got our images there in position. Now, let's take a look at the cornflower to start with. So with the cornflower, for instance, if you want to actually select the cornflower, even though I've got the layer selected, it's not selected. If you press Control, you notice when I press Control, this happens. It means that we can select that like that. So what that means is if I do, say, a new layer, and then I do Edit, and then Stroke, so we want to have that border, 19 pixels on the outside. Press OK, it's going to create that border there, right? So what I can then do is I can actually go to the menu here and duplicate the layer. And so with this copy, I can just essentially drag this one and that will be able to go right around that one. Okay, so that is going to be that one, right? So what I could then do, for instance, is I could combine these two. And the way to do that is go down here, merge layers. And then we could combine these two. Merge layers. Control E. And then we can say, well, this is going to be the cornflower. This is going to be the buttercup. All right, so that's one way. We'll press Control D, deselect everything. Now we could do another layer here above the bricks. And what we could do in here is we could do a selection. So we'll do a selection of, let's actually maybe do like quite a big rectangle. I'm kind of interested to see what will happen if we do this. So then we're going to do another gradient. And this time I wanted to go for I think it was blue 30. Let's try blue 27, why not? And we'll try this one. And I wanted to go from green to blue, so I think that should be, try something like that. Just lower the opacity. One final thing we could also do is just put these two together, do a new group, flowers, and there you go. So that just helps to organize things a little bit better. So yeah, that is essentially one way that you could organize like a Photoshop file. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome to a Photoshop video where I'm going to look at all the different options with regards to paste. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this elephant here on the left, and we're going to press Control C, and then we're going to go to this other image we have here, same size image, and press Control V. And you'll see what's happened is create a new layer, and we also have the image directly in the center of the picture. So that's one way you could do it. Now, a second method you could do it is, again, I've still got the elephant there in the clipboard. If I then press Control-Shift-V, I'm going to paste it in exactly the same position that it started. So that's a different way that you could do it. Now, if we take a look at the actual paste special menu here, you can see that was paste in place that I did. There's a couple of others as well that we're going to look at. Paste into and paste outside. So let's look at those. Again, we're going to go back here. And what we're going to do is, you'll notice that at the moment they're grayed out, the paste into and paste outside. So, and that's because they require you to have a selection. So if I wanted to, instead to have the elephant here in the top right hand side, I could do a large box here, and I could either use the shortcut or I could go to paste into here. And that's going to paste it into there. So essentially what it means is that it creates a layer mask. So if I select the layer mask and then I link the layer mask together like that, what I could then do is I could do a brush tool, and then I could do brush tool, I could set this color to black, and then you'll see that once I go over here, I can start deleting some of the mask here. And the paste outside is essentially the opposite way of doing things. What we're going to do this time is we're going to select again, and paste outside is the opposite, so we can select where we want the elephant to be. We're going to want it in this area here. Go to Edit, Paste Special, Paste Outside, can link and then select the layer masks, then change the color to white, press OK, and then we know it's here somewhere, so we'll select our brush and we can reveal it like so. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about in this particular video, so thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to another Photoshop video. In this one I want to consider the selection tools. So essentially, how do we select different parts of the image, right? So obviously we've got the marquee tools here, right? So if I simply drag out, I'm going to select, and you can see that the box there is expanding in both in the X and the Y here as far as I want out. And it's starting from the registration point, for instance, we could say is this point here at the top left. Now, if we hold down Shift, that exact same will be true as well. But you see, as I go out here, and I go out here, it's not doing much. It's constraining it to a square. And we can see that's also true if we use the elliptical. So if I do this way, we can get an oval shape will go down here. If I hold down Shift, it will constrain it to a circle. If we hold down Alt, what it does is actually it makes the point that you click in the center point of the whole selection. So I hold down Alt, and I particularly chose the center there of this thing, and you can see we're going to get the center point there, right? So we're able to highlight the whole image pretty well. And also if you hold that Alt and Shift, it will constrain it to either a circle or a square there. So say another thing to keep in mind is, so we're drawing the shape and we think, well, actually, you know what, I probably started that in the wrong place. So before we let go, we hold down space and we can start to move it into a better position, right? And then we can continue drawing out and we get the position that we want. Now, once you finish creating your selection, what you can then do is you have these modes here at the top. And if we take a look at the 4 modes, so this is the normal mode, new selection, and then we have add, subtract, and then intersect. Now you can click these buttons individually, or if I hold down Shift, you see I'm holding down Shift and letting go, it will temporarily switch to that. So if I hold down Shift and we say, well, I probably want this area to the side here, or we could do like maybe make it larger, or we could do on the other side, and that will essentially expand the selection area. Now if we hold down Alt, it will go to this one, which is subtract. So we could do subtract, and then we could just say I don't want this area here at all. And we could remove it back down. Now say we hold down Alt and Shift, that will go to this one, the intersection. So if we draw, say, a shape here, only the intersection, so that small area here, will be selected. So that's essentially how to do all the different selection tools in Photoshop. So thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to a video looking at color range. So color range is an option which has been in Photoshop for a long time. If we take a look at what you actually get in here, you can see we've got sample colors. So this localized color clusters button, this is something that got added to a new thing. So the localized color clusters got added more recently. And what it does is it activates this range thing. So you can see it's going to turn that on and off. And the range thing is related to the actual physical distance between the points. So let's try, you can choose the preview. So I'll just do none for now. And what you can do, you can see I've got the eyedropper tool. the eyedropper tool, you can use point sample. You can increase it for a high resolution. So what we can do, for instance, if we wanted to sample the colors, so this is in the basic mode, which has been around for a long time, right? So if we want to look at these colors, you can see what happens. It will highlight that area there. There's obviously an area in shade here as well. So let's have a look and see what happens if we increase the fuzziness. You can see, and obviously the wallpaper is also a similar sort of color. So increase the fuzziness. Going to get pretty good selection because it's very different from the frame of the door, right? So we can probably go all the way. Actually, all the way is probably a little bit too far. But let's do it so we can't see the frame of the door about there. And we're going to get that selection there. All right, let's try that again. We'll do color range again. And if we do localized color clusters, we're going to decrease the range. So you'll notice that with the point I clicked on the door was somewhere on the door, right? So you can see that when it sort of goes to a spotlight when you decrease the range here. So what I could do is I could change that point and put it like in the middle of the door, and you can see I can specify what part of the door we're looking at here. So that is a different way of approaching the problem there. Let's try and just maybe try something with the. So this. Let's change that color to something completely different, like a green. And then if we look at what we've got, we've changed it all to green, but the shadows are still dark. So let's look at the shadows as well. So we can go here, shadows. If you want to do if you want to brighten the shadows, which I'm trying to do here, see what happens. See, I did sort of manage to select the shadows like that, and then I could perhaps do a different color on that. Oh wow, I haven't even seen this before. We'll replace it. Can we just? Look at that. What about a? We'll go for you. Interesting effect, yeah. But you can see, I mean, that's where the shadows were, right? So there's a way that you could change the shadows and do some things. So that's all I really want to talk about. So thanks for watching. Hello, welcome back to another Photoshop video. This one I want to look at changing this lamppost and giving it like a called a gold effect, right? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to layer and then layer style. You may recognize this from After Effects as well. And we get this pretty large box, right, of things that we can do to it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is go to bevel and emboss. And we can see the direction here of the inner bevel. You can choose different, but I'm going to increase the direction, increase the size of that. And you can see it updating in real time, right? So we'll put that pretty about 84 pixels, why not? And then now that we've got a little bit of gloss on it, we can go to the gloss contour and contour that. I find the best ones are probably this one, but for this one, this actually is not bad. That's not terrible either. That's like a step sort of function, isn't it? Let's try using that one actually. I haven't tried that one before, but actually now thinking about what happens next, it might actually be. We're going to go to contour here. And what you can do with this is if you notice, if we change the range here, at 0 it goes all the way to the halfway point. So you can see that like makes it like almost like a symmetrical shape at 0 there. Try a little bit here. I kind of like that, maybe a little bit further. All right. And then what we can do is once you've got the essential design that you want, you go to the color overlay. So I said I wanted to do it like gold, right? So what I can actually do here, I've got this tab, and here's a gold medal. So I've actually got this program here called Power Toys. And what it actually does, this program, is you basically do this thing called color picker by just, and I'll show you what it does. So say I wanted to get this gold medal here, right? I just press the button. Doesn't really matter for this, and you can see it will tell me what it is. So I can choose what color of gold I want, and probably like a kind of like a brighter gold. This is kind of useful because it kind of like, even if you get the wrong color, so say we choose that one, right? I'll just copy the value over and jump back into Photoshop. And then we go to color overlay, we'll choose our color, paste that one in the box. It gives you like a ballpark sort of area, like, so you sort of know what color you're actually looking for the gold. So, you know, I could go a little bit somewhere else, right? But it's gonna be essentially what gold does actually look like in like real life. So yes, I'm pretty happy with that. There you go, and there's a bigger variant of it. It definitely looks better. So yeah, so that's what it looked like before. This is what it looks like now. Definitely looks better, I think. So that is one way that you could make a gold object. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome to this video looking at transforming images. First, I would like to look at just the resizing images and one way that you can resize the image. Now you can see on the bottom screen there it says 2014 by 2398 pixels, 72 pixels per inch. So if you wanted to resize, there are ways that you can resize using the resampling, and this will work, and it will basically put an algorithm in to resample it. What you can do is if you turn this off, what you can actually do is you want the dimensions to always be the same, but say I wanted to half the size of the image, all I could do is increase the resolution and that would half the size. Or conversely, I could double the size by doing that, right? So that is a different way, and you'll notice that the dimensions will always be the same. It's just to do with the pixel density. All right, now what I want to do is look at the free transform tool. So this is the free transform button, and what it lets you do is do a bunch of different effects. So we've got an area selected, and I want to look at some of the things we can do. So we can scale the image. So you don't actually have to press Shift. If you press Shift, it does sort of the opposite of what you might think. Shift lets you adjust it, but no Shift will keep the corners the same size. This is what Alt Click does. So Alt Click is going to scale it from the center of the image. If you have the mouse on this side here, you can do a rotation. So the skew operation is known by this, which is you can see this vertical arrow, and that is the skew effect. If I hold down Alt as well, I can skew it like that. So there's slightly more subtle effects, the skew. Less subtle though is the distort, which is a control click on a corner point, and you can distort the image however you want. Shift and Control is going to give you the perspective effect. Now, of course, you can actually access these for the transform menu themselves, and also you've got these options to rotate and flip. So you can see we looked at scale, yeah. So we looked at those. So for instance, if I do distort, so you can obviously select the options. So you can select all these options here: the scale, rotate, skew, distort, perspective. We also have warp as well. So warp is a slightly more advanced effect. Lets you do, gives you a perspective grid, gives you some Beziers as well. Right, now if we do look at the different tools, you can see like for scale example, like you can see these are locked. So this is the options bar basically for scale now. So if I wanted to change the scale, you see I could do it numerically as well. Yep, and you'll notice that they're all exactly the same for these tools here. The one difference and why the warp is in a different category is if we look at warp, you see warp has got a bunch of different settings. So you can actually specify the axes in warp. It's a bit like doing guides actually, very similar. Change the grid. And you've got a bunch of different settings in the custom settings here as well. You can change the color also, the warp guide. So that will do for now, so thanks for watching. Hello, welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this video I want to look at sort of default ways to use blending modes. So you can see I've got the word summer here, white text, black background, and I also have it in black text with a white background. So if I wanted to put it into here, we need to see what we do first. So the most common one is probably this. So let's put this one in first. So we'll go over here, put it in and make it bigger. And if we wanted to blend that, what you need to do is you need to use multiply. So you can see then it will cut out all the white background there. And the opposite of multiply is this one called screen. So if we get this guy here, pull this one in, put it in and make it bigger. And then we try screen on this. You can see then that's going to cut that out as well. So yeah, just sort of ways that you can potentially blend layers there. So thanks for watching. Hello and welcome to another Photoshop video. In this I want to look at the brush tool. So with the brush tool, there's a bunch of different things in the brush tool. You've got the brush, which all these things would be. And then for instance, if I look at like the dodge tool, for instance, you can see there's still a similar sort of options menu here. So with the brush tool, what I'm going to do is just go for like this soft round brush. And you can see that when I click on here, I'm going to paint in the foreground color. Okay, but there are a bunch of different shortcuts that keep in mind. So if I just right click when I've got the brush, you see I'll be able to choose that, I'll be able to go to that menu. Now, obviously the size of the brush is pretty obvious, but for instance, if we have a hardness of 100, you can see it's just going to be a solid color there. And if we have a hardness of 0, you can see it's much more like a feathered look, right? It's similar to feathering in After Effects. Now there is actually a way though to actually change that, to change both the size and the hardness of the brush without going into any menus, and that is to use the square brackets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep on clicking and press the right square bracket, and you'll see I'm increasing the size of the brush. If I do the left square bracket, you can see we're going down in size. And what about, so you can see we're currently at hardness of 0 there. So if I do shift and the right square bracket, see I've gone up to hardness, and you can see, so essentially it's just shift and the bracket will change the hardness of the brush. Okay, but there's actually a bunch more things that we can actually, let's actually change that to, okay, let's change something to maybe a bit more contrasting here. Okay, so what else can we do with our brush here? Well, right click will open the menu, but if we do a shift right click instead, you actually get the blending menu. So that will let you on the fly basically change the color. So for instance, we could do vivid light on this area, or we could do screen. It's always a good one. So you could change some of the colors like that as well. Now, if we alt right click, what you do, this is probably even better than actually using the square brackets. It means we could just up and down is going to change the hardness of the brush, and then left and right will change the size of the brush. So actually, I mean, to get a large size brush like that is actually quite difficult. It certainly takes a lot more work. You need to press it a lot of times, this square bracket. So that's significantly quicker doing it this way, right? So we could do it like that. And probably the coolest option out of all of them is if we go Shift, Alt, and right click, you can actually choose, you can change the color completely. And you just choose your new color. So we'll go, so where I want a yellow, lighter yellow, and we can put that in there. Another thing we can do as well is if we were drawing and we say, actually, I want to go back to that green color, we can press the key next to the 1 on the left, and that will actually switch to the background color temporarily while I've got it held down. Anyway, that will do for now. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this, I want to look at how can we get a shape and see the background through the shape. Very, very simple. So you can see we've got our background layer. We're going to add a new layer, and we're going to draw a shape. So here you can see I've selected this tree here, and we'll just put it there. All right. So I think we've got the tree in about the right position there. And what we're going to do is for the appearance on the tree, we're going to choose fill and have no fill. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the paint bucket tool here, and we're just going to click over here, press yes, and then do a paint bucket. And that will get you the tree and just a outline of it with the background like that. Hello and welcome to another Photoshop video. In this video I want to look at this tool over here, the Clone Stamp tool. So the task is, how can we get rid of this pothole and try and make it blend in using the Clone Stamp tool? What we want to do is, because Photoshop normally you want to deal with non-destructive layers, you want to make a layer and we want to put the changes on this layer. Now this is a bit like an eyedropper. You press Alt click and then it will fill with the replacement texture. But it's currently only looking at the current layer here. So if I do an Alt click, and then try and paint over, you can see there's nothing in the little box there. So it's actually not going to have anything to paint. So what you need to do is you need to change this to current and below. So now you see when I Alt click, I'll just maybe zoom in a bit more here as well. Okay, so Alt click. Let's click in a sort of fairly generic spot here. So Alt click here. Wait till that sort of a crosshair thing appears. Click. And now you can see I've got the texture lined up in the brush. And then we can sort of just go over the area. You just put all that in there. So yeah, so that is how you could potentially remove a pothole in a picture like this. So thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this I just want to look at the soft light blending mode. So one way that you can do this is using a gradient. So for instance, if I go here and we just choose our gradient tool, you can see I've just got the black-white gradient, this one over here. So if I just do this, for instance, it will make the sky darker. So you can see that this is black, so it's going to make the sky darker. So you can see the more vibrant sky compared to the original. And it is sort of, and the front looks a bit more washed out. Or you could also do overlay. Look, it goes even more in that aspect, right? The other example you can also use soft light for. So if we try this and we put soft light, you see it does add a more textured approach. But in this situation, actually overlay is better. You can see it's bringing out like different shades of like purple at the top here, and then you can do some things with the opacity. Get it to not overdo it on the opacity. Get it to a different level. So yeah, so that will do for now. So thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to another Photoshop video. In this one, I wanted to look at the Quick Mask button. And you can see it's this button here, Edit in Quick Mask Mode. Default is masked areas, and I've chosen selected areas. And we're going to just see exactly what that does, right? So you can see it changes here as well, RGB to Quick Mask. So when we're in Quick Mask mode, you'll see the color as well is going to change to black, right? So what I can do, what it essentially does is it provides a way to give you a selected area. In the mode I'm in, obviously, selected areas mode. So for instance, I could just draw out with the paintbrush. Press Shift as well to constrain it to certain axes as well. You know, I could just do, you know, try and get like that's larger, right? And you can do Shift to. But anyway, so once you've got the area, right, what you can do is then you leave Quick Mask mode. Then when you press Q again, you'll notice that it's actually, I guess if I'd made the brush harder, it would do the whole area. But the point is just to show what you can actually do with this. So then when we go to the actual brush tool, right, let's choose a different brush this time. Just because, let's go for an art brush. I'm curious what, yeah, butterflies, why not? Why not butterflies? Let's do massive butterflies. Now, well, that isn't very big, is it, actually? That's a bit better. All right, so now if I start to draw the butterflies down here, you'll see nothing actually happens. But you can see as I go into the area, it will only essentially fill the area. This is an interesting brush. So it will only actually fill the area that you select, right? Wow, it's actually a really cool brush. I have to check this one out more. But yeah, what is it doing? What about champagne? This is going to be one of those ones, I think. That's a cool brush as well, actually. These brushes actually, they're using the actual source image, aren't they? Right, you can do a lot with brushes. We'll have to. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to focus on. But anyway, so that's what Quick Mask does. Hello, and welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this video, I would like to look at the Clouds filter. So to get to the Clouds filter, we go to Filter, we go to Render, and we're going to go to Clouds. And you'll see each time we do that, we're going to get a different sort of like blurry clouds filter. Now there's two different types of filter. There's no config option for this, but there are two different types of clouds that you can get. And this one, and it's a little bit confusing because this one, it looks like it says Alt Control F. But actually, if you press Alt Control F, you actually get a different version of the filter, which is a more intense version. So I'm just going to press the keyboard shortcut now, Control Alt F, and you'll notice it's definitely a more intense version. Whereas if I just click the button, it will go back to that original version there. Now, you can obviously use it with just black and white, but there's like a lot of cool things you can do when they actually change the colors on it. So if we look here, we're going to go to the pale colors, and what we'll do is we'll do a lighter shade of brown and then a darker shade of brown. So we'll do this one, X, and then this one, X. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So you can see there's the regular one, Control F, slightly more intense, a bit more variation in the colors there. So this is obviously quite useful. So for instance, we could do a similar thing with a green here, and we'll choose the darker one on this here. Take a look at that. So that's what you get there, kind of like a lightly textured effect, and then Control F, the texture is a little bit more. Okay, I just want to clarify the complementary colors here in RGB. So here you can see we have magenta and green. We can go through a bunch of different phases with that. Also going to have cyan with red. So we can do filter, difference clouds on that. So there's a cyan and red. And we take a look at, so that we can do that and then put it in a more intense one. And if you go for the difference clouds, and then you get one phase where it grayscales it, and then on the next one, yeah, I think you have to go through that grayscale process first to get this kind of much more, and this kind of resets. So if I then go through difference here, and one more time, it's a less intense effect. It's definitely worth actually pressing Control F. Yeah, to go through the more intense versions. And the final one, of course, is the blue with the yellow in complementary colors in RGB. So just trying to think. Yeah, you can just go straight into it, right? I guess. No, I think you do need to actually you need to de-do it, basically. You need to run the regular one first. Then you do it again to get to the, yeah. And then you run the difference to get it to this. One, and then from this point you will get the, that's sort of like, without, because otherwise I think it's doing an additive effect. So there's an RGB. What do we do yellow? Is that yellow the same? That yellow looks the same, right? So we do yellow, and then this is like a lilac color. Let's have a look at that. Where is it? So we'll do an RGB yellow, and with a lilac. Let's make sure we got that. Okay, now let's apply difference. It looks like I accidentally incorporated extra elements there. So yeah, do the clouds to get it sorted. We can intensify it, and then the difference. Basically doesn't work. Because I mean, I think if I change the color mode, right, it might work though. Yeah, I think if I change the color mode, this would work. Hmm. We'll have to, we'll have to keep working on color theory, I guess. But anyway, that will do for now. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this video, I want to look at this Cadillac, and I would like to change some of the levels and do some editing to it to make the car more vibrant. So one way you could do it, and there's obviously a lot of ways to do it, is go to Image, go to Adjustment, go to Levels, and then what we can do is we can drag the white point here to the left, which makes the car brighter. So we just drag this to the left, you'll notice that the car becomes brighter. Now when you press OK, it does actually absorb it into the background, which is kind of not good because it means that you can't really do any other changes. So another way you could do this is you could go to this adjustments thing, and then this is the same one, levels, and then you can see you get basically the same graph, but you see what's actually happened this time is in the layers, we have the layer mask, and you can actually hover over and it will tell you layer mask thumbnail, layer thumbnail. And then for instance, I could do the same thing, drag this to the left. There's my brighter car. But then you can say, actually, I want to see what it was like before. So you can sort of take a look, see how it looks from before, if you want to keep it at that level. All right, so another type of adjustment we could do is with curves. So if I go here, this one is curves. And you'll see what's happened. It actually hasn't, when I do stuff here, for instance, I change the preset, it's actually doing the whole image. So it's actually ignoring my selection. So that selection took me a while to do. So I probably don't want to do it again, right? So what I can do is I can click here on the layer mask and hold down Alt. And hold down Alt, and I'm going to drag it in here. And you see now I've got the layer mask on this section as well. So if I do some of this stuff here, for instance, lighter, you can see that now I could do curves with it as well. So that is like a different way that we could do it. And then we could also, curves gives you access to this graph here. So this is the cool thing about working with metal textures. You can get some really like awesome effects with curves. I may have to do some more cast type stuff because when it comes to things that are made out of metal, cars are kind of pretty cool. So yeah, so you can get like an effect like that as well, which is pretty awesome. So another thing you can do is if you wanted to just only have this on certain parts of the car, you can choose brush, and I've gone for soft round brush, pretty large brush because the image you can see is quite big. And all you can do is, because you've got the selection right, if you just paint over it, it will just go back to before, and you'll see that it becomes painted on in the mask layer there. So we could just say I don't want that part of the car. And yeah. Anyway, that'll do for now, so thanks for watching. Hello, welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this one, I'd like to look at a few different things. One of them is using the color blending mode. How might we do that? Well, we could, for instance, select this area. If we wanted the area to sort of match, what about this? This is quite a cool color, that one, right? So what we could then do is we could just fill this color entirely, fill that in, and then when we go to a blending mode of color, you should get quite a kind of cool effect there. That's an interesting effect as well, isn't it? That color itself would actually, if you did darker color, it would hide a lot of the, it would override that. So there's lots of different things that we could potentially do with that. Let's actually now bring this background into this area here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw a square. We've got a, should have no fill yet. Let's just draw a random, like a photo frame thing here. And the stroke, I didn't want it to be that actually. Let's make it much bigger. And let's make this image, we'll go Control T on the, we'll do Control T here on the layer. We're just going to position it in the middle. Okay, so let's put it in there, right? Now, one way that you can actually, if you only wanted to see the border here, if you just change the blending mode here to multiply, you see that's actually going to cut out all the edges there, so that will just leave you with the actual image itself. That's a cool way if you just want to have the border and you want this layer to be on top of the actual sort of frame of the picture. Okay, now I wanted to look at this image, which is, what if we wanted to change the color? There's a lot of green in this image, right? So again, we're going to go over here for the hue and saturation. It creates, as you can tell, the adjustment layer here. Let's just take a look at this in a bit more detail now. So you have this. Now what we can do is we can go for greens here, right? And you'll notice that when we actually move it along, nothing really happens. So what you actually have to do, and that's because the selection is kind of small. So if we just add the colors we want to the selection, you'll notice that it starts to get a bit bigger, right? So now if I go for saturation, see it's actually affecting it really well. You can see the sky is being completely ignored. And I can essentially like add more and more. And yeah, if you go to this, you can turn it black and white, which is kind of cool. And but you don't want to press this button. If you press this, you see it affects the whole image. One thing you may have noticed, if we just go to, if we just put this here, one thing you may have noticed is that some areas are not being affected quite so much. So, and take a look at what happens to this when we start to add in some extra areas. So add in some of the brighter ones. So I went to yellows too. So it's because the range is actually getting larger. So that's added that little section there. So now that section is changing as well. You may not want that section though, so we could try and remove that. You may not want some of these things here. What about some of these darker sections? See, when you did the darker section, it actually deselected almost the whole lot. But actually selecting the brighter sections here ends up giving a more subtle effect. But yeah, lots of different ways that you can potentially change the hue and saturation. So thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to this video looking at how to resize an image in Photoshop. Kind of for beginners, so if you've got Photoshop and you want to resize the image, you might have something like this. You're going to have like a picture or a photo, and you might have some layer styles on it, like a bevel and a stroke and all that. So the way to resize it is we're going to go to Image and go to Image Size. And this is a box that will come up. So now because I have the bevel and emboss, there's this little button here that says Scale Styles. So we might want to do that. So currently, say we wanted to fit it to, I don't know, like what about this one, the 1366? Okay, so we want to fit it to that size. So now you'll notice I can actually press Scale Styles, and that'll be on, and you see it have a little tick mark there. Now with resampling, it will automatically choose it as bicubic sharper. The best one though available out of all of them, these are kind of like newer ones that came out more recently. So the best one to go for is bicubic smooth gradients. And I can press OK. And this one does actually take a little bit longer. That's why, if you did a different one, it might go immediately. But the smooth gradients takes a bit longer. And let's press Control and 0. So there it is rescaled. So, and you can see that all the different layer styles I had previously are all matching up in the same way they did before. So yeah, so that is the way to resize your images. So thanks for watching. Hello and welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this video we're going to focus on changing the color of the image. So here you can see we've got some leaves, and to change the color we're going to need to create an adjustment layer, which is in this adjustment section. Click here on Hue Saturation and you'll see that a new layer is created. Now all we have to do is, where this hue slider is, we can simply drag it along and that will change the color to whatever color that we want here. Now a second method of changing the color would be, say, for something like this image. Now in this situation we only want to change the sky color, so we're looking at blues essentially that we need to change. So again we're going to go to adjustments, and again we're going to go to hue saturation, and this time though we're going to click here where it says master and we're going to go change it to blues. what this will mean is that only the blues in the picture will change. So this green will not change, the other colors will not change. So as we change the hue, you can see that occurring. And that is a way to change the sky color, for example. So you might have greens for leaves, reds for flowers. Could be various different things depending on your image. So yeah, so that's how to change the color. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome to this video looking at how to remove objects with the Content Aware tool. So first we need to select the image. So we've got our image here and we want to remove this baby elephant. And to do that, we're going to use the object selection tool. We're going to draw a box around the baby elephant, like so. And after a few seconds, you'll see that the baby elephant becomes selected. We can then right click on it and press Content Aware Fill. And that will immediately change the toolbar here on the left hand side, selecting the lasso tool. So when we look at this particular elephant here, we're just going to just zoom in a little bit. So we can see that there are some issues, especially like we've got the edges of the elephant of the selection there. And that is what the lasso tool is made for, essentially. We can expand by a couple of pixels. So this needs to be pretty low most of the time. So we just press expand. And you can see immediately with only one, in fact, it already is gone. Then the final thing you need to do is in fill settings, essentially color adaptation and rotation adaptation are things that are going to really help the final image. So you want to basically put these to max. So we're going to go very high and you'll see the difference here. You can see immediately that area of sort of brushland was filled in. And again, if we put it on full, we're going to get a more kind of clean image there. And then we'll hit apply. We'll do OK. And when we deselect, we can see what we've got to work with. So you do need to sort of, a lot of the time you're going to need to clear it up with the clone stamp tool. So click on the clone stamp tool. And what this will do is just select an area, but hold down Alt. There's our area. And then when we just pull it over, we can start to fill in these areas with sand. And similarly, we'll do just press some of these sort of, Turner-esque sort of areas. Might just want to put in a little bit of extra stuff. So yeah, so that is essentially how you might want to clear an area and remove an object from an image. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this video, I want to look at how to resize layers. So for instance, you can see that I've got a door here, it's too big, and we might want to fit it in on the left-hand side against this thing here. So a couple of different ways to do it. The simplest way to do it is to do the free transform tool. And you'll see that when we click here, it will scale it appropriately. Or if we hold down Shift, we'll be able to stretch the image. The more modern way to do it, however, though, is to use Content Aware Scale. So with Content Aware Scale, it will look at things like, take a look at this pattern, and I'll just put it in here. So Content Aware Scale. And you'll see when I resize it, you see if you look at the pattern in that area of the wallpaper there, you can see it's sort of identifying there's a repeating pattern and then scaling. It won't always work. This is probably a bit too complex for this to work. But you can see it does kind of work. You can kind of move that door in. So that's the way. And again, also with Shift, you can do this scaling as well. So I could scale it to be much larger. And you can see, let's just take a look at that. Doesn't quite look right, but it certainly looks better than it would if you just scaled it normally. You can also just, once you've got a layer selected, press Control T. That will just put you directly into free transform mode. So you can see there. The default setting is bicubic. I tend to prefer to use the bicubic smoother, but you'll get different things. You can also do bicubic automatic. Different settings will give slightly different effects. So yeah, a couple of different ways to resize layers there. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome to how to make a vignette in Photoshop. So there's going to be 3 different ways I'm going to show today. Number 1 is the filter. We go to lens correction here. And if we go to custom in this menu, you can see we've got an option that says vignette. And we can increase that in the lighten to get that sort of effect, or darken. I can also change the midpoint. So you can get different effects with these 2 options. The second method is not really Photoshop, but you kind of get there from Photoshop, and it is in Camera Raw. Control Shift A. And what that will do is it's going to open up your document in Photoshop. And there's a couple of vignette options in Camera Raw. You can see in Optics, and we also have it in this one as well in Effects. So for instance, we could increase that effect. And we could also kind of enhance it with this one as well. So you can see the effect of doing that. Shift escape to get out of that. And the third method, a little bit more difficult, but not particularly, is if we just do a new layer. So we can choose whatever shape we want. I'm just going to do this rounded rectangle here. And what you can do is if you change the pathfinder mode, right? So this one is subtract. So then it will just give you that. And then you sort of like blend it in, and you obviously want to reveal the background as well. So to do that, you can change the opacity here. So you see you're going to get the background coming in there. So shape properties, you have two different modes. You have obviously the shape properties here, but you also have this mode, which is the masking mode. And this is the mode that lets you apply feathering effects. So for instance, we could do a feather effect and get something like that, for example. So that's another way that you could potentially do the vignette. And obviously you're in a position where you can start to move the vignette around, do other things with it. Becomes more kind of malleable, I guess. But that will do for now, so thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to this video looking at drop shadow. So say I wanted to add a shadow here, we could add one, click on effects and doing that. Now, one of the things you might want to do, for instance, is to increase the spread. So let's do that, right? If I change the opacity to 100, I'm going to make sure I get a fully black shadow. And so that means that when I increase this, you can see I'm going to get a fully black shadow like that. So opacity and spread will create a black shadow like that. And then we can move it around like this. And you can see we can also change the angle from which it's actually being positioned at like that. So they're the sort of most useful things to do. And then you could make the size bigger and also increase the noise. So you can see you can get that grainy effect. Finally, you could also change the color here to whatever you want on the color. That's how you might do drop shadow. An alternative way to do it is you could select the subject. That's going to get you another one here. So what you could then do is basically just turn it to black. So I'll just press the paint bucket here, and we'll fill it with black. And then what we could do is move this one down, and then we could just sort of, again, we could just move. If we do move, make sure we're on the right layer. You see, we could then just position this in a different way, and maybe fade it out a little bit more than that. Give you a different way of doing the shadow, which gives you a bit more customization. But that will do for now, so thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to this video looking at how to get a target in Photoshop. So I've got the ellipse tool selected, we've got fill, we've got stroke of 30 points, and here you can see I'm going to choose exclude overlapping shapes. So we're going to start at the corner and try and do a circle here. Just do it roughly. We could do it with guides as well, but we'll see if we can do it roughly fairly well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the point which is just outside the circle, about here, but it's sort of like in the middle of the curve between the top point of the circle and the left point of the circle, and draw another one in there. And try and level it up as much as possible. So I think this is kind of what a target looks like, sort of an archery target, something like that, right? And that's a pretty cool thing that you can do fairly easily. And there are actually some interesting things that you can do with the shape properties here. Specifically, if we look at the feathering, if we increase the feathering, you actually get some pretty cool effects. So you see you can actually start blending it. And as you get the feathering really high, so you can see you can do all sorts of fun stuff with this. You can exclude certain colors. So definitely like a technique to try, right? To do like some cool stuff and create some cool shapes. And like I said, this is already made possible with the Pathfinder, this exclude overlapping shapes. So yeah, that will do for now. So thanks for watching. Alright, welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this one, I want to look at the Liquify filter. So I've got my selection chosen here, this door. And we're going to take a look at Liquify. So with Liquify, you get like a huge box coming up. And you get this box here. It shows you a selection. You can choose the mesh color and size. And you can do reconstruct it. You can also hold down Alt and right click to change the size of your brush. So, for instance, we've got a brush here. Let's try and mess up the handles a little bit. Okay, so the next one is the reconstruct tool. You can see that is actually going to bring it back. And so that's the forward warp and the reconstruct tool. Okay, so here we got the image, and what I'm going to do is just look at some of the things. So forward warp tool. So let's try warping a little bit. And then we've got this one, the reconstruct. Alt right click. If we alt and right click, we can actually change the size, obviously. See that, that's going to return it back. Let's do the smoothing tool. Okay, so let's cause a more of a serious disturbance and see what happens if we get the smoothing tool on the go here. So you see, it's not going to return it back like the retouch tool does. It's going to give you a more, like a different kind of effect. But it still remains sort of like that, sort of like bloated thing. Let's look at the twirl tool now. So twirl, see, creates, it sort of does a clockwise rotation. Or if we hold down Alt, see if I do the same thing, we'll probably go somehow back to where we started. Close. Let's have a look at it, go back to reconstruct, see if that's still going to, yeah, reconstruct really just puts everything back where how it started. So it's pretty cool. So you really got quite a lot of flexibility with that. Let's look at pucker. Again, we're going to do a slightly bigger brush. Pucker is going to be a pinch effect. Let's try it on here. Just hold that down. So it's going to pinch inwards. So this, I guess, is probably quite good for perspective stuff. And then bloat, I think, is the opposite, basically. Yeah. You can see we're going to bloat these structures outwards. All right. Next up, we have. So what push left does, it pushes the pixels 90 degrees to the direction. So I'm dragging left. It's looking at that point and saying that's north, and then think where west is. That's where it's pulling the pixels as I drag left. So if I drag down, say that's north, to the left of that will be east. So I'll drag down. See, it's going east, like you would expect. If I drag up, that's north. So then to the left of that would be west, and there it goes west. So you get the idea. And the other way to do it is you can hold down Alt, and that will do it the other way around. So if I do left, you can see it's going up. So that would be north, and then it would be 90 degrees to the right. So that's up, right? So that would be west, and then 90 degrees to the right of west is north. That sort of thing. Okay, so free mask essentially lets you select an area. So we want to keep these handles. Obviously, you do a little bit more precisely than this. And then we'll try the push left with a massive brush. And you can see those handles are not being affected by the mesh being changed. And if you also want to do you can also do the opposite of that one, which is this guy, the Thor mask. Basically just deletes certain areas. So you can get a more precise thing going on there. And then the final ones are, hand and zooming stuff. I guess Alt zoom. Similar sort of stuff, as you might imagine. Obviously, you've got to be careful with the Alt, because Alt right click also does this stuff. So, but yeah, pressing Control when you're on another thing. Control and Alt is obviously that. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same as the other thing. Let's try something interesting here. So we'll do some work here, very useful. And we've also got this button here, reconstruct. Let's put this. So that's an interesting one, isn't it? If you feel you've done too much damage, you can do revert reconstruction, and you can actually see it in real time like an animation. That is a pretty interesting effect to do that. And yeah, that looks like about all for the reconstruct. We are going to get onto this one, the face aware liquefy, probably in the next video. So until then, thanks for watching. Hello, welcome back to another Photoshop video. In this I want to look at levels adjustment, try and understand the histogram stuff. Okay, so we've got an adjustment layer, and you can see what we have here is this we call the black point. It's also the shadows. This is the white point. It's also the highlight, and this is the midpoint. It's also the gamma. And what this graph shows you is from black, the lines are saying from black to white. So we have a gradient here from dark grey to kind of, light beige. So what it means is that the blacks are not black and the whites are not white. So if you want to do that, when we set the black point to here, so you'll see, you can also do it here, for instance, right? You could set the sample image to the black point. I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to drag this slider over. What this is doing, it's saying basically the values from 0 to say 52 or whatever, they all get condensed. And so this is now black. And the same thing happens if we do this. So all those values that are here, they all just become white. So that's why now you can see we've got a gradient from black to white. And if we want to lighten the gamma to lighten, so even though this is black to white, the midpoint slider acts in the opposite way. So pulling it to the left will lighten the midpoint, and then pulling it to the right is going to darken the midpoint. So here's the next one. This is I've used this image a few times. All right, let's again do adjustment levels layer. Here you can see is that the shadows here are not there, and the whites are not properly white. So again, what that means is that you want to make these points darker, right? So let's have a look and try. If we set the black point, let's look at this. Is really dark spot, right? So that no, I don't want to do it like that. All right. So again, what we can do is we can say, well, we want this to be the black point here. So everything is going to get condensed into that, and everything's going to get condensed into that. So now the blacks are darker than they were before. We can take a look at that. You can see a little bit darker now. It looks a little bit better. So that's how that works. And again, if we want to lighten the tone, we can lighten. In this situation, might want to darken it. So essentially, because this is midpoint, I guess you could say that all the points, you're going to want a slightly more even distribution. That's probably why this looks slightly better as darker rather than lighter. See, when we go lighter, it starts to look too washed out at this point. But it looks pretty good about that. All right, let's have a look at this one. This one is obviously a slightly more complicated picture here, but we might be able to do some different things. So let's actually use these buttons here. So the black point. Now it looks like there's something wrong with the exposure. That this area here is too dark, right? So let's make our black point a dark spot in the image. So that is really dark over here, right? So already you can see it looks better. There is this thing where you start to get banding here, and that's not a good thing. And then the white point, well, we've got like white tiles here. Probably nearer the sky will be even lighter. Maybe that is a good white point. So that actually, just by doing that, it's definitely improved the image, right? It does make it look better. And again, we can look at the midpoint. So remember, we're going to make it lighter to this side. So let's have a look. So you can actually see that this area here that was in the dark areas is actually already looking a little bit better, right? We look at the detail that's coming out there when we go hit it right over there. Interesting. Yeah, just to look at this detail, because it's kind of interesting over in this section here. Just trying to find the right spot. Yeah, if we put this over here, somewhere around this area. You're definitely going to get more detail in the image when we do it much lower than that. I'm curious to see like if let's just cut off some areas here. So you can see we cut off some areas here. And let's on this one, we probably don't want the bounty so much because this is where all the details in the image are. We can lighten it by doing that. And let's just zoom back out again. Let's do a Control-0. So yeah, I mean that certainly makes everything much clearer. Maybe a little bit darker. So that might be the final result for that. So if we look at what it was before, okay, so the final result, I just grouped the images together. That is the original, and it goes to that. It definitely looks a lot better here. But yeah, certainly interesting anyway. So thanks for watching. Hello, welcome back to another video. In this, I wanted to look at the healing brush tool. So with the healing brush, you can see I've got it selected. You can look at the options menu here. It's my first video with the Wacom. You can change the roundness of the brush. So you can make it like a oval shape, for instance. And yeah, it responds to pen pressure. You want it to be a hard brush. And generally you want to work in unaligned mode with the healing brush as opposed to clone stamp where you want to be in aligned mode. So I could do something like this. And look at the clone source as well. You can see these are all different. You can grab stuff from different documents. So for instance, I could got some random rocks here. Like I could take a not quite sure what happens if you just take a huge section like that. And it will certainly load it in, right? And then you can have the overlay here. So if you have the overlay off, you see you won't see it through. But yeah, let's go back to about 250. I'm going to try replace mode. And so that could be that one. Let's just try like a different one because they're all just like, it's just like a slot basically for the stuff. Yeah, I'm just using the graphics tablet for the first time. So now I've got the rocks there and I've also got this chateau thing. So I could, for instance, just, and you have the choice between aligned. So aligned, if I go like this, you'll see it's going all the way through from that spot there. Now this is obviously going to be a problem. It gets brighter down like at a lower level. So I could do aligned here. But you see, I don't want to go too far, otherwise I'm going to hit that door. But like I said, if you do unaligned, we'll do it on this left side. Unaligned is like where every time you take your cursor off, it will reset the position. So like if you have like a spot like this spot here, in a way it doesn't work too differently, I guess. I'm curious to see what happens if we try like something completely different here. Let's try this in a larger. I think it probably takes the whole amount of information if you grabbed it first. Well, these rocks. You can see all the information there from those rocks, and there's the sky as well. So it does actually preserve a lot of the information there. But yeah, I wonder like what the use of that would be. Like maybe like in a very small area, if you wanted to sort of like, I don't know, you might need to. Yeah, I'm not sure that is necessarily the best use case here. One thing I would say though is that with the healing brush, yeah, if we it's sometimes better to have a different spot like down lower. And yeah, so let's take Let's take, for instance, we'll take this spot here, just to get a bit lower. Didn't want to do that. But yeah, I think you can really, like, because of the amount of space here, I can, if I start here, I can go to like about the middle, right? So I can take that spot and I can say, well, we're going to go all the way to, we don't want to go, because otherwise we're going to hit the door. So I could do like little things like that. So I could push it through like that, maybe. I do think in general, though, you need to, because you can see the change of the shape there. The problem is you do get some like repeating patterns, which is not good, but I could also try just seeing ones we change to get much, much larger here. If we start to get more like a variety. Yeah, it doesn't. I think you can, like with something like this, you could see that way we're going to get some of this shade textures higher up, which might be what we want. But then the blending is worse, right? What might be interesting is if we take a like a cross section of the two different, like take this section here. So we should get like a bunch of like, let's do some, again, we'll do some strokes here. You can see we're getting like a more of an even blend of the two different textures. But yeah, we don't want to get too much. So yeah, so that is basically like how you start to use the healing brush. It is a more, like it has been like succeeded by the spot healing brush, which we'll get onto pretty soon. But yeah, pretty cool thing that we can do there. And just there you go. All right, so that will do for this video. So thanks for watching. Hello, and welcome to another Photoshop video. We're going to look at this button here, the select and mask. So what I'm going to start by doing is going select subject, and then it's going to select the subject, and then I'm going to do the inverse instead. And then I'm going to go to select and mask. All right, so we've got rid of some of the subject, right? So if you think about it, we want the subject obviously, but we need to have these pieces of hair as well. So if we can make the whole, if we can make, so there's the mask, and then if we can make it also on the hair, then we can just invert the whole lot. That's basically my idea. So we'll do a new layer on that. All right, and then we want to look basically at this area here, because that's where there's all like, if you look at this sort of area, right, you can see like there's lots of like wispy bits of hair and stuff. You could go straight into color range and try and do it from there. That is one way you could do it. You could just try turning up the contrast, maybe. I reckon that the filter. Let's try on that then, and let's see if we can then do the color ranges on it. Oh, it looks quite good already. So we need to get rid of some stuff though. Like I don't want these things here. Yeah, it's not bad. So you can see that we've got some of it selected. And then you could just do select mask those bits. Maybe that would be good. think probably if I did feathering as well. Feathering, it needs to be like almost like a reverse feather. It's not terrible though. Yeah, if you actually bump up the edge, that's actually getting there, isn't it? It is getting there. I wish I knew how this refined edges button work. It doesn't seem to do anything. I'm sure it does, obviously, but whenever I just click with it, I guess actually, now look at it, actually is doing something. So maybe I've actually just used it correctly for once. That's nice. I like that I don't have to use too much. Yeah, actually, yeah, working pretty well now.